Assalamu alaikum. I'd like to invite Sheikh Shumali to continue his lectures on Aqaid, inshallah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-ali al-azim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina Abil Qasim al-Mustafa Muhammad. وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره إن شاء الله. Today we want to talk about the problem of evil. And most of the time in Islamic theology, Islamic Kalam, they address this issue when they talk about divine justice. And the question is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just, why we see there are some problems in this world? There are two general types of problems. One is, Assalamu alaikum, what they call it in philosophy of religion, the moral evil, the other is natural evil. They mean by moral evil any problem which is caused by human beings. Like, for example, war. When there is a war, many people are being killed. Many innocent people are being killed. Many people are injured. Many people suffer. And although this is because of human beings, but still the question is why Allah has created human beings in this way that they can kill each other, they can injure each other. Or for example, sometimes you have an unjust leader or ruler, a tyrant, prosecutes people, imprisons people, tortures people. The question is why Allah gives such a power to some people to do injustice. This is moral evil. The other type of problem is natural evil. For example, sometimes there is earthquake. It's a natural catastrophe. Sometimes there is lack of water. Many people suffer, many people die. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this world in the way that we have these calamities. So normally our ulama, when they talk about divine justice, they address this issue. But sometimes they also address this issue when they talk about unity of creator. There is only one creator. Because there have been some traditions, some religious traditions outside the Islamic world who had the idea that God is the creator of good things and bad things are created by evil, by the evil or by shaitan. Or for example, in Zoroastrianism, they say by Ahriman, which means the Satan. And they believed in two principles in this world, the principle for good and the principle for bad. So our ulama reject this idea of having two creators. So sometimes they discuss about this problem in that part of the Islamic theology. And it is also a very famous problem in modern philosophy of religion. In every textbook of philosophy of religion, there is a chapter on problem of evil. And people try to see whether this can be taken as an argument against existence of God or not. And recent articulation of the problem, which is done by a philosopher, English philosopher, who was also not very much sympathetic with the concept of God, who is known as Mackie. And he's not Mackie, he's Mackie. So this Mackie, John Mackie, had the idea that if you believe in 3 propositions, then you have problem. And the only solution is to deny one of these 3 propositions. Those 3 propositions are, first, God has absolute power. Something that religious people accept. Second, God is absolutely good. God doesn't have no intention for doing something bad. God is benevolent. This is also something that religious people accept. Third, there is evil, there is problem, there are catastrophes. He says you cannot believe in all these 3 propositions together. Either you have to deny the first, that God has absolute power, or you have to deny the second, that God is absolutely good, or you have to deny that there are some problems in the world. His idea is that the third is obvious. You cannot deny that there are some problems in the world. So either you have to deny the first or second. Either you have to deny that God has absolute power. It means that you must say there are certain things that God cannot stop. God cannot stop an earthquake to come. God cannot stop someone like Saddam to kill people. God cannot stop him. Or if he can stop, still he doesn't stop, it means that he doesn't want. So it means that God is not absolutely good. God is indifferent to the suffering of human beings. God is observing that we are suffering and he doesn't do anything and he has the power. So his idea was that you have to deny one of these 3 positions, and he himself, of course, was denying the first or the second. What is the answer? First of all, we should know that none of these arguments that people like Mackie or others have developed is really against existence of God. It's only against some kind of understanding of God, not against existence of God. In other words, they cannot disprove existence of God. They can only say that we have some problem with your concept of God, that God maybe is there, but he is not all-powerful or he is not absolutely good. Okay? You never find any argument which can prove that God is not there. Okay? This is the first point. The second point which I would like to mention is that although normally we talk about this problem when we talk about divine justice, but really it's not a matter of divine justice. It's not justice of God which is at question. It's more either power of God or benevolence of God, or if you want to be more precise, the wisdom of God is at question. Why? Because justice is to give everything and everyone what he deserves, or what it deserves. To give everything its due right. When it comes to our relation with God, we cannot claim that there is anything that God owes to us, so that we say, okay, you have not been giving my right. There is a problem with your justice. Suppose, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes me poor, and suppose this is Allah's deliberate decision, it's not because of my own laziness or because of the society or because I didn't have proper education. Suppose that God has decided from the dawn of creation to make this person suffer. Still, I cannot claim that God has not been just to me, because I didn't have any right over God, or God was not in debt to me. whatever I have is from him. He may want to give someone more, he may want to give some people less. For example, we have a person who comes here, a generous person, and he gives some people some gifts, and he doesn't give other people any gift. Then among those people who give gifts, he may give some more precious gifts to some people and less precious gifts to some other people. For example, he gives vouchers of 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 50 pounds, 100 pounds to different people and doesn't give anything to anyone. Can we question his justice? You say, you are not just? No, because it's his own money and his own generosity. He wants to give to some people and doesn't want to give some other people. The only thing which we can question really is his wisdom. If he's a wise person, there must be a reason why he gives to some people and doesn't give to some people. And then among those that he gives, why he gives more to some people. So it's a matter of wisdom which is here, really, here to be questioned, not justice. Is it clear? So in respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we cannot question his justice. Just we can say, why Allah, who is the wise, let these things happen. Let some people suffer, let some people be killed, be prosecuted, be tortured, be imprisoned, and he doesn't interfere. He doesn't stop this. So it's not really a question of justice, it's more a question of wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or as Maki and others have said, a question of benevolence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is to begin with. The other point is that historically there have been different answers, different kind of solutions. Some of people in Christian tradition and also in Hindu tradition, and even you may find among some people who are some philosophers, they have had the idea that those things which are bad, they don't really exist. The only thing which exists is something which is good. For example, what is death? You talk, some people are being killed. So this is about death. What is death? They say death is nothing other than having no life. So life is something which is created by God, and death is nothing more than lacking life. Or for example, illness. A big source of suffering is illness. Some people are suffering because of illness. Illness is lack of health. So they had the idea that all the evil things are only non-existence of good things. So indeed, we are not talking about something which is created by God, which is brought into this world by God. But although I think what they had in mind was good, but they couldn't technically, develop it in a proper way. The best answer is something which is developed by Plato and also by Muslim philosophers like Ibn Sina, like Mullah Sadra, like Allama Tabai. And that is not to say that everything which is bad is just non-existent. Because in reality, this is what I am suffering from. Whether it exists or not is not important. You say illness is nothing other than lack of health. Okay. This is something which is there and I am suffering. Poverty is lack of money. But this is a condition. And I am suffering from this. You cannot say this is an illusion. This is a shadow. No. Whether it is something independent or dependent, it's something that I'm suffering from. It's a condition. So a better answer is that these things that we suffer from, these things that we say they are bad or evil, these are relative issues. These are all relative concepts. To develop this world consists of three major parts, the whole world of existence. One is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the creator of this world, who is the most perfect being, who is the being which exists necessarily. There is no little sign of deficiency in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the question of evil or suffering or bad thing doesn't come there. Then we come down to the created world, to the universe, which is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this by itself is divided into two major realms. We have the immaterial world, the abstract world, and we have the material world. Again, in the immaterial world, when, for example, angels, when intellects, not human intellect, intellects in the way that peripatetic philosophers talk about abstract beings which are created by Allah, and there is a hierarchy of them, and the last one, who is the active intellect, is in charge of running the material world. Intellect in that sense, they are also perfect. They are not the most perfect, but they are perfect, and there is nothing wrong about them. The only way that we can think about problem is when we talk about the material world, which is the lowest level of existence. There is no problem about divine realm. There is no problem about the abstract realm or a spiritual world. The only problem is about the material world, about the nature, about plants, animals, human beings, all these things, that water, soil, air, pollution, dirtiness, all this is about material world. Okay. In the material world, we have some problems. There's no doubt about it. We have shortage, we have famine, we have drought, we have illness, we have disease. There's no doubt about this. We have people who are not educated, we have people who are not able to read or write, people who don't know how to treat other people, people who act immorally, viciously. There's no doubt about this. But we should know that this is the nature of the material world. Material world, by definition, is subject to these things. It cannot be perfect. When you have a combination of limited beings which have lots of potentialities, they are not fixed in the best position. In the spiritual world or in the abstract world, everything is fixed in the best possible way. You cannot have angels who, for example, study or work hard to become better. Angels have their own fixed position. As the Quran says, وَمَا مِنَّا إِلَّا لَهُ مَقَامٌ مَعْلُومٌ. All angels have their own fixed position. Everything is as it is supposed to be. When it comes to the material world, you have a combination, a mixture of billions and billions of beings, which all are in the state of becoming. We are in the state of becoming. We are not fixed. We have not reached. Lots of potentialities. Lots of different scenarios are in front of us. And as a result, you may have clashes, you may have conflicts. You call this evil, but this is evil for you. This is not evil for something else. For example, if I go to a jungle, and then a wolf comes and attacks me and kills me. Then my family would suffer, and they would say that this was evil. But that wolf cannot be criticized, or Allah cannot be criticized because He has created wolf. That wolf is something which is created and is in need of food, and the creation of wolf as such is not bad. The fact that wolf eats meat is not as such bad. It's only when it conflicts with my interest I say this is bad. But who am I to think that everything must serve me? Even two human beings may have conflict of interest. So we cannot say Allah must make everything worship human beings. Even human beings have problems with each other. Sometimes I drive fast, then I cause my passengers to be injured, or people in the other car be injured. So what should I say? Should I blame Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala why He has created me, or why He has created those passengers? No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created human beings in the way that they have been given free will, and the result of having free will is that sometimes we may act properly and sometimes we may act improperly. We may cause problems for others and for ourselves. We cannot say that everything had to be created in the way that it could only produce good. This means that you must not have this material world, this world with potentialities. Some kind of hadith that I have heard, and I haven't seen myself this hadith, so I don't use this as a kind of argument, just as a kind of beautiful story. It said that once the Prophet Musa saw a small animal, a small insect, like a cockroach, for example. And then he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, I wonder why this cockroach has been created. I cannot understand what is the reason behind creation of this cockroach. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, according to this story, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, it's very interesting. Just now this cockroach was asking me why you have created Musa. So it's quite a relative issue. We may think that we are very important, but everything in this world is important. Everything for itself is important. This world is, this is very important, something that people like Mackie didn't understand, is that this world, this material world, is not perfect. Because when it comes to matter, when it comes to the material world, you cannot have perfection. This world is the best possible material world. The best possible material world. This means that there are lots of problems. Even there are more problems that we know. Allah knows more the problems which exist. But this is something which is unavoidable. This is something that you cannot stop. Either you have to say that we don't want the whole creation, which is not something good, or this is the result. And when we prove the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we prove His knowledge and His benevolence, we must know that it's not necessary that I understand the reason behind everything. Because we don't have enough information to judge about every single thing. After thousands of years of studying human body, still we know a little about the way that human body works. There are many, many things that we know, but the thing that we don't know is much more. And human body is the nearest thing to us. Sometimes there are something or some parts of body that still we don't know why they are created or how they function. But we cannot say, because I cannot understand, so this is useless. This is something which was not needed. No. If you have belief in God, then you must trust. You must say, okay, there are something that I understand, and there are many things that I don't understand. In other words, you can never prove that there is something in this world which is not useful in no ways. You cannot prove this. How can you prove that? The only time you can prove this is if you have all the information relevant to something. And we don't have this. So really, really, we can never prove that there is any fault in the creation. We can say there are conflicts, and this is obvious. This is unavoidable. Once a person asked Imam Ali alayhi salam a very good question, similar to what people ask sometimes nowadays, but this is old and question, and this is a beautiful answer from him. Sometimes people ask why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, does not create the world without problem. Or they say, if you believe that God is omnipotent, He can do everything, why He cannot create a stone that He Himself cannot lift? This is, typical question that some people ask. Once a person asked Imam Ali that, does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have the power to put the whole world inside an egg without that egg becoming larger? So this was the question. To put all the world in an egg, boiled or unboiled, is not important, without that egg becoming larger. Imam alayhi salam said, Inna Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala la yunsabu ila al-ajz walladhi sa'altani la yakun. Imam said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can never be attributed or can never be described as incompetent or unable. But what you ask is impossible. The one who has power is the one who can do possible things, not the one who can do impossible things. The things which are impossible, these are not at all things which we talk about them. These are things which cannot be done. These are not really things. You say, I am a very good mathematician, the best mathematician, who has won the Nobel Prize, everything. Then I ask you, if you are a very good mathematician, please make 2 + 2 5. You say, I cannot. Then I say, oh, so you are not a good mathematician. No, this is wrong. It's not a matter of your knowledge of mathematics. This is something which is not impossible, which is not possible. This is impossible. You cannot just imagine this. So, it's impossible to have a material world and then have no problem. It's not because Allah doesn't have power. He has all the power. But this is an implication, a requirement of this material world. And again, if we go further, we find that many of these things, which we find, very difficult, very bitter, very painful, first of all, many of these things can be avoided. If we human beings really were wise and took the instructions from our reason, from our conscience, from prophets, the world would be much better world for us. The creation is okay, but it's still a matter of how to run and manage this world. For example, do you think that it's necessary to have poor people? This material world, although it's limited. But do you think that really the world cannot bring and produce enough food for all human beings? No. It's mismanagement. And this is greediness of some human beings. Otherwise, we could have a world without any poor person. We could have a world without any person who is illiterate. So many of the problems could have been prevented if we were wise, if we were good, if we were kind, if we were fair. Even when it comes to natural catastrophes, today, we all talk about global warming. But the main factor, the main person or reason to blame is human being. We have ourselves damaged the environment very quickly and very fastly in the last few decades, more than the whole history of mankind. So it was not something which was predestined to happen. So many of these problems are avoidable. There are some problems which are not avoidable. For example, as I said, someone can get killed because of car accident. But this is not a problem in the world. This is not a problem in the creation of metal or iron or human beings. No, this is just the nature of this world, that there is interaction. My body can interact with a very hard, for example, and sharp ironic thing or metallic thing. Then I may get hurt. But this is something which has also lots of advantages. We can benefit from this softness of our body in most of the time. We can benefit from hardness of metal in most of the time. But sometimes these two conflict and cause problems. Or for example, sometimes fire burns our house. But can we say a world without fire is better? No. So there is no problem in the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just we need to be wise enough to put everything in its context and understand what is the benefit. Sometimes people, for example, ask, what is the benefit of having eyebrow? If you take eyebrow out of the context and ask me what is the benefit of eyebrow or why eyebrow is created like this, I cannot describe the benefit. I cannot explain it. But if you put it in its place, then I can say, okay, there are lots of benefits in the creation of eyebrow. This is a very beautiful and famous poem in Farsi which says, Jahan chun khat o khal o cheshm o abroust ke har cheez be jay khish nikoost. So the whole world is like the face of a human being. You have eyes, you have eyebrow, you have mouth, you have nose. Everything in its place is beautiful and useful. If you misplace them, then it makes problem. If you take them out of the context, you cannot understand the benefit. So, this is a very brief answer to the question of the evil and why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the world in which there are some kinds of problems and suffering. I think I should stop here to let you to have some questions, and maybe then we can better explain the things. Thank you very much. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. We have until about 9:15 for questions, and then after that, if we could go downstairs for tabarruk and for namaz, inshallah. So can I offer the first question to the ladies, please?
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
With respect to God's justice, can you explain how Shias understand decree and destiny?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything in advance. And sometimes when we say everything is decided in advance, or everything is coming through qaza of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or decree of Allah, we think that it means that we have no choice. No, it means that Allah knows in advance what is going to happen. And when it's related to human voluntary actions, it's not fixed. It's not something which is predestined in the sense that I have no choice. No, it's only the fact that Allah knows in advance what I'm going to do. And everything is Allah's control, but He Himself has decided, this is predestined, that I should have free will and I should do what I want to do. Of course, I will be responsible, but there is no way that we think that the concept of divine decree or qaza is in conflict with human choice. No, this is part of Allah's plan of the world, which no one can stop. That human beings are given free will. So there is no conflict at all between the concept of divine decree and human freedom. But the concept of predestination is something that I am reluctant to use because it can be used in different ways. If you mean by predestined that everything is done and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has arranged everything in the way it leaves no choice for us, this is wrong. If we mean by predestination that everything is known in advance by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the plan is made by Allah and part of plan includes human free will, then this is acceptable.
There a question from the gents?
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum.
Sheikh, I just want to ask you a question in respect of a concept that you introduced around the generosity and the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
And you give an example if somebody came into this room and gave us, various people in the room, different vouchers to say, and we couldn't question their generosity because it's their decision whether they give £100 or £5, that's up to them, or nothing at all.
Yeah.
And I quite accept that. But that person coming into the room has no responsibility over all of us. If we extend that analogy to say that if we're all children of the same family and our father came into the room and he gave us various different amounts of money, now that person has a parental responsibility over us. He expects us to behave in a certain way in the context that he has explained to us is the best of behavior. We all behave in that same way. And then if he were to gift us in different ways, do we not in a sense feel that we haven't had the full justice because we can't understand with our limited understanding that we haven't had a fair share?
Yeah. If we really think about justice, we don't have problem of justice here. But I think it's problem of wisdom. The fact that we can question a father that is not treating his children, for example, in an equal way or in a fair way. It's not really a question of justice. It's a question of wisdom. If, for example, you have a teacher, for example, has been given some money by a school to distribute among students in an equal way. For example, to take them to some, trip and spend this on the children. Then the teacher spends this money more on some people. This is lack of justice. But if the teacher distributes exactly the amount which has been given to all students, but from his own pocket, he gives some students more, we cannot question his justice. We can just only ask him, there must be a reason. If you are a rational person, if you are a wise person, there must be a reason which explains that why you have given to these people and not the rest. The same is about father. A father, if he is giving the money which belongs to the children like for example, some kind of money which has been given to them, and he is responsible to distributing back to them, then he must distribute it as a requirement for justice. But if it is his own money, this is not a question of justice. It's a question of rationality and wisdom. And of course, we criticize a person that without having any rationale gives more to someone and less to someone. But it's not justice, it's just wisdom. So just I wanted to make distinction between the two.
Is there another question from the ladies?
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
I'm finding this concept hard to understand as well, because I would assume that a wise person, when we think of somebody wise, we assume that person to be just as well. By justice, we say that that thing is put in the right place. In the same way, if somebody is wise, we would assume that they would be just as well.
Yeah.
So how can you say that if God is wise, then straight away, naturally, he would be just as well? I can understand the question of equality and equity. We don't assume everything to be equal. We assume everything to be, for example, men and women. We don't expect them to have the same roles, but similar roles, equality and equity. So in that terms, I don't grasp your concept of how you're explaining justice as one thing and wisdom as another thing.
Yeah. This is important. Whoever is wise is definitely just. So I didn't say you can be wise and unjust, but I'm saying that wisdom requires more. Justice is a limited concept, because justice, it means that give everyone what he deserves. But wisdom requires that even if they don't deserve anything, still you must act out of a rationale. There must be some reason. So whoever is wise is definitely just, but whoever is just is not necessarily wise. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala treats us, all human beings, with justice. But this doesn't mean that we are all created equal. There are differences. These differences do not impose any problem on justice. Just we need to understand the wisdom behind these differences. Why some people are men and some are women? Why we are not all men? Why we are not all women? This is not a question of justice. This is a question of understanding the wisdom. And now we can easily understand that if we were all men or women, then we couldn't have this complementary function of men and women. So, as you said, whoever is wise is certainly just, but not vice versa.
Very much, Sheikh. We can take a last question, inshallah, if there's one from the gents.
Assalamu alaikum.
You mentioned that there's three parts of the existence of the world: the creator, the created, which is divided into two, material and immaterial.
Yes.
And what's the third part?
Which one?
The third part of the existence. You said there's a creator, the
Okay.
created, material and immaterial, which come
So it's
under
three.
that. Okay. So
The creator,
okay.
the immaterial created world, and the material created world. So three realms of the being, of existence.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. Inshallah, we can end there and continue next week.
Inshallah.
Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.